I've never interviewed a psychopath before.
I mean, obviously I don't feel anything, I'm sure.
How do you answer the allegation that you are exploitative in the cult?
How many times were you in prison?
3 times. So I put a man in a coma.
No.
Yeah, that was the main thing. Well, I've actually put 2 people in a coma. And I realised in that moment that I was the problem.
In this episode, we step inside the mind of a psychopath who chose to rewrite his history.
Growing up, my dad was an alcoholic, and he would put me down a lot. He'd call me a buffoon. He'd tell me I never amount to anything. He would say I was stupid. He would say I was bad.
From prison to 25 million. Now the subject of Netflix, the Psychopath Life Coach documentary, and a Penguin author spotlighted by Forbes and Yahoo Finance as one of the world's top 10 coaches. Meet Lewis Raymond. I've never interviewed a psychopath before.
Welcome.
I'm scared.
Welcome to your own podcast.
I did a story just before, so I'm trying to... No, it's something. Like, for someone to admit that they're a psychopath and then to build a career as successful as yours whilst telling everyone and on Netflix having a literal documentary about yourself, admitting I'm a psychopath and then making money off it. That is wild. How do you feel about it? Do you feel?
Well, yeah.
Do you feel?
I mean, obviously I don't feel anything. I'm sure
What?
we'll get into that, but I just don't have a visceral reaction. So
Come on.
it's just as a thing. You know, it's like asking a blind person why they can't see. You know, it's I have cognitive emotion, so I could tell you how I feel, but it's just the way I represent it. So I could answer that question, but if we're getting into the actual
But if you
depths
see
of
like
it,
a little kitten or something getting ridden over, do you not feel really, really sad? Is it that kind of feeling that you don't have, or is it a different kind of feeling that you don't have?
See, that's a little bit different because it's on a spectrum and there's
Okay.
a threshold. So the illusion of empathy and fear and things that people seem to get consumed by on a day-to-day basis, I just don't feel. It's just very baseline. If something significant happens, if I was to see a cat getting run over,
Yeah.
I would. It's difficult because I'd have to really be there to know exactly what I feel like, because it is kind of rare that I have those moments. But
Yeah.
I would be concerned about
Yeah.
it, you know, and I would
You
be,
would?
yeah,
Okay,
I would
good.
care about it, yeah. I actually really like cats, funny enough.
Oh, good.
I actually
How
have.
can you
At
not
one
like
point,
cats?
I had 5.
Oh.
Because in Bali, we would see them on the street,
Yeah.
just ironically, little ones on the street. And I would take them home. So I do like cats. But there's a big difference between cognitive understanding, empathy, feeling like I know that's sad and wrong and bad, you know, and having a visceral reaction to it. And if something significant happens, like a death or something really tragic or something, you know, I
Big.
will have a feel.
Yeah.
But it will be less, and it will be
It'll be less.
It will be like a tiny little flicker, and it will go straight away after.
Okay, you see, I mean, I love that you've said that you love cats. That just shows you, because I just love cats, and it's just
I've
like
got
the
3
only-
cats tattooed
Yeah,
on my bum.
Of course, even if you're a psychopath, the one that's going to have you have feelings for, it's going to be a cat.
Yeah,
Let's be honest. Okay, but look, let's just go through some of your credentials
Yeah.
here, okay? And I have taken notes about this because this is really outrageous. So, from prison. And also, I've never met anyone that's gone to prison that I know of ever in my life. So this is a first. To 25 million empire. You're a really good business person.
Thank you.
That is so cool. Netflix. I mean, you have a documentary about yourself. We said that you're totally in the spotlight. And there's more documentaries on the way. There's things constantly happening for you. I know that you had an event the other day. You're totally on a big stage. You've got people coming around. It's like literally nothing for you. And then you've got this, you want to rewire education, because we'll talk about this. You're very into education, but in a different way. And then your business is about coaching. And you're very good at it. So you're pursuing a PhD in education. Is
Well,
that-
it's interesting because you should have updated your homework actually, because
I wanted, yeah, I know. Okay, we'll talk about this.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this. Yeah, there's a whole thing about the education
Yeah.
and how you've taken a different path. So we'll pause that one. But you've done so many wonderful things, and you've done it whilst with this label. Okay. And that's massive. So we're going to talk about that. So the documentary about you is called The Psychopath Life Coach. That's correct?
That's the one.
Okay. Were you okay with that? Did you question it and go, don't call this documentary that? Or whose idea was the title?
It wasn't the initial working title for it, but as the sort of exploration of everything unfolded, that became the central thing.
That became the thing.
Yeah, because that was the unique edge. And, I was okay with it because I'm logic first. I'm not emotion first. Most people would be like, oh, I can't be called a psychopath. What's going to happen? What are people going to think of me? But
I'm quite emotion. Huh?
Yeah. But for me, it's logic first. And I understand marketing, and I understand the idea of sensationalism and being interesting, and people aren't going to watch it if it wasn't called that. So and it gives me a platform to educate and inspire, and what it's called doesn't bother me. And I found it interesting. It's something that I've found quite enjoyable to talk about and be positioned as, because it's different, it's unique.
It is unique, and people have watched it. And today I was at the hairdresser having my hair done, and the hairdresser said, I've seen his documentary. You're going to interview? She's like, what?
Because what I didn't expect, to be honest, was
no?
to get into the top 10. So it was 7 in the charts in the UK.
It's pretty huge. She was like, I can't believe you're interviewing him. I'm like, yes, I'm terrified. She's like, oh my God, you're going to be okay. I'm like, I don't know. So what's the thing people get wrong about you? They have this expectation. What do you think they get wrong about you? Because you're obviously aware. You're very aware. I can see you sort of looking and analyzing, and it's like, I know you're aware. So what do you think people get wrong about you?
I think if people take the time to actually learn about me, they don't get much wrong, because I'm brutally honest and transparent, to the point where people just can't really get their head around how I would be so blasé about the things that I think and feel or don't feel or care about or don't, my intentions and all sorts of things. I think so when people actually understand and learn about me, they get me right, because I'm displaying exactly who I am. It's the people that don't take the time to learn about me. So they might see a snippet of a reel that's 30 seconds long, and it's me talking about putting a guy in a coma and not feeling anything from it. And of course, I get you're evil, should be locked away for life.
Yeah.
So those, of course, people don't understand. They also don't understand psychopathy, or if we are going to get it into more detail.
Yeah, we'll get in more detail. The
actual clinical diagnosis behind it, which is an antisocial personality disorder. And this is just neurodivergence. This is no different than someone that's got ADHD or dyslexia.
Really?
Yeah, it's a neurodiverse. I've got a diverse, different
I do know quite a few people that are openly, they talk about that, and they are neurodiverse. Yeah. And you can see that their brain works in a different way, and they get really excited about things, and they'll, you'll talk about something and they'll go into another subject really quickly and passionately. You think, well, hang on, come back. But it's sort of in a childlike, very genuine. It's what you're saying. It's very direct, very honest, very... there's something nice about that.
Yeah, but there's also something probably counterintuitively negative about it as well. It's
what?
Well, people they can have ADHD can have low attention spans. They can find it very difficult to concentrate or get things done. They procrastinate a lot. They overwhelm themselves with too many things. So there's dark and light to everything. And I think it's just in more recent years we're becoming more open to the ways that people work. It was only however many years ago that the whole LGBTQ thing that was not spoken about, and now it's like, of course, huge in every aspect that possibly could be.
Yeah.
Now it's moving
people talk more.
Now it's moving into the way that you think as well, and I think different layers of that will get unfolded. At first it might be, I think slightly differently, and it's like, that person's got a disability then. If you've got dyslexia, you're disabled. Now it's like, okay, they just think a certain different way that's harnessed those skills, and how can we benefit from that, and what type of person is this? And then different layers get unraveled. And I think something like psychopathy, this has got the worst label attached to it, that it's going to be one of the last to be uncovered.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing already an awareness around it.
A movement.
Yeah, and there are more features that I know about that are coming up that are going to bring a lot of light to this, and more people are going to come out of the woodworks for sure.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So you've shared a lot about your life. Prison, addiction, your diagnosis. Does a part of you regret being so open, or are you totally comfortable?
Totally comfortable. I
not question yourself sometimes at night, or wake up and think,
The only one thing that's come up recently, because I recently did another documentary that's going to be aired in Germany. There's a whole different feature that's sort of similar in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And since the first documentary, I've had a son. And the questions that come up around him to do with love and things are very sensitive.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I'm very aware of if one day he may watch that and what he would think about that. Because I want to make sure that he, you know, understands that correctly and he doesn't perceive that in the wrong way. So that's probably the only thing. I don't regret it, but that's probably the first time I felt uncomfortable with how my thoughts might be perceived, because I'm now aware that it's not just me.
Yeah, there's
matters.
someone more important than you, and their life is impacted by everything. You just, it's communication, isn't it? You've got to let them know, like you say, who you are. And then the rest is noise. Once they know you, they know you. The rest, it doesn't. But I get it as a parent. I totally.
Because imagine being asked, do you love your son?
Oh God.
That's what they threw at me, you know. And the answer is yes, I do.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily feel it, and it's different, and it's probably less. That's the truth. Because I can't just pick and choose. I can't just say, oh, I'll have that emotion but not that one. And I just have a very flat range, and it's a knowing rather than a feeling, and it's shallow, and it's lower than
well, I
everybody's.
don't know, because you've just exhibited more than parents who don't consider themselves having the psychopathy and whatever, that you are considering him already. You're thinking about, well, when he's older, he's going to watch these things back.
Yeah.
What I've said is going to impact him, and a lot of parents don't.
Yeah.
You know, they don't care how they speak to their kids and whether that's going to affect them or not. I mean, and they don't have any diagnosis.
It's true.
They absolutely should.
And that's why it's a spectrum, you know. I'm not a full-blown psychopath that cares about nothing and nobody other than myself and would go out and want to create harm to everybody I come across. You know, that's just the 0.1% that the population have known from serial killer documentaries. You know, that's a very, very small part of that spectrum. I cognitively understand and intellectualize and know what's right and wrong, and have values and morals that I've learned that I stand by. Not because I get an instinctual gut visceral feeling that I have to do it, but because I've learned and I know that that's what I want to live my life by.
You made a conscious decision to live like that. Okay. So in terms of those things, like you say, there's, you know, this psychopaths that go all the way to the extreme, and they do some very, very bad stuff. What about for you? What was that the cutoff point, the rock bottom where you thought, okay, you know, something, let's change this. I don't like the way that it is to now, and I'm making a decision to change.
Yeah.
What was that?
I mean, I've never actually, I mean, you might be surprised to hear this. I mean, considering, you know, some
what
of
you've
my,
gone through.
Yeah, some of my backstory is things like I've had a suicide attempt. I've broken my jaw, my cheekbone. No, sorry, I've broken my jaw, my cheekbone.
How did you break your jaw, your cheekbone?
Just fights, you know. Yeah.
Why are you fighting with people?
On reflection, there's a few things on it. One, I crave significance because I didn't feel loved by my family. I don't think that they displayed it to me, but also there was probably a part of I didn't know how to receive it or feel it, even if it was present, because they weren't showing me they love me, but there's probably still an element
So you didn't get hugs and like,
no.
Come and sit on my lap.
I might have got that, yeah, but I didn't get the I love yous.
The really I love you and the sort of
because there's many parts of love, but one of it's showing it and the other one's feeling it. So you could probably have a parent who doesn't outwardly display it so much, but you still feel it because you.
Yeah, they do things.
Or it's not even they do things. There's just probably this. I'm just guessing that there's this kind of radiation bond of love. So for me, I didn't get that because I didn't know how to, didn't have it, didn't have that connection. But also I wasn't shown it. So the closest thing that I could attribute to love in my mind was significance. That was in my warped sense of reality without even consciously really knowing it.
Significance to whom?
Significance in any way. Like I used to like acting, singing and dancing when I was younger because I would be up on stage and I'd be getting attention. Then I started negatively behaving and getting attention that way. So, you know, I was expelled from school at 15.
Why did you get expelled? What did you do?
Refusing to accept the authority of staff.
Oh.
Because there's another sort of symptom of the antisocial personality disorder. I don't see the hierarchy of authority. It is completely baseline to me. So it doesn't matter who you are, how important you are. I just can't. I don't get that obvious. I should, listen or behave with this person. So I was just very
Wow.
rebellious and eventually got me kicked out.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I definitely do respect authority. And like the headmaster walks in and you're like, you know, and it's a headmaster. So you didn't.
To me, it's just another person.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
But
I
in a
suppose
way, you could also polarize that and say,
Yeah.
but then that's good because everyone should be treated equally. So it's like
Yeah.
it depends how we look at things. You know, you could be like, he thinks he's better than everybody else. He doesn't respect people, but that's not necessarily the case. It's just a case of I don't look at it and say, society has told me that this is a person that I should listen to. I see it as I'm going to make my own decision up.
Oh. What about like police and stuff like that and the law?
Yeah, all
No,
the
it's
same.
not relevant.
All the same.
No. I mean, I like the law. I like that there's rules. Because I think, you know, my daughter's just gone in to study politics. And she's asking me my political views and whether I think, and we went to see Alcatraz and stuff. She's asking me about prison and whether it's good and the rules and how long should people be in prison for and all that sort of thing. And everyone's got their views. And like my husband will say like, no, like there should be much more like reform in prison. People shouldn't just be put in prison. Like you should look at, you know, why are they there and do some other thing. Like prison doesn't work, you know, but then you think about like really dangerous people and you're grateful that there's prison because you think, well, it's protecting, you know, those, and there should be some authority. Otherwise everyone's going to do what they want.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, see, I think that's where it gets confusing for people because it's not to say that I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's a good
okay.
idea. I
Oh,
know
you
it's
did.
a good idea, but do I have this immediate natural response to follow it? No.
No.
And I think it's, yeah, of course, I mean, society would be a mess without it.
You agree with that?
Yeah.
It would be, right?
Yeah, of course.
You just
And-
let people do whatever they want.
And I can logically respect the police and I think they're doing a good job. And I don't have any, you know, I don't wish they weren't there. But for me, when I was growing up, I just didn't have, I had to learn that I shouldn't break the rules. I had to learn that. It wasn't natural.
Yeah,
I
you
would
didn't
naturally
respect
break-
authority.
Yeah, I
So
would naturally break the rules because I didn't have any value for them naturally. And then learned later on in life, oh, I can't keep doing this because it's going to put me back in prison.
yeah. There was a rule that I broke because I went to boarding school, okay? And I was in a girls' school. And there was a girls' school, and there was a little gate, and then there was the boys' school. And you were not allowed ever to step your foot over to the boys' side of the thing after 5 p.m. to the boys' side school. I thought that's a ridiculous rule because there's no, like, it's not, you live there. So it's your home. So you, and the gate's open. And sometimes you have a conversation that you have to finish. You know, this is like, you know, young love and things is really important. And I thought, I did think in your way, I'm going to break the rule and stay after 5 p.m. because I have to finish this conversation. There is no way I'm not having this breakup conversation or whatever it was. So I did that. And then because I knew that I had broken the rules, I said to the prefects, I've broken the rules. I've done it deliberately. You can punish me. I can be grounded, you know, whatever. That you're literally not allowed to see anyone and do anything for like 3 months or something following something like serious incident because it's like security breach or whatever you want to call it. But I said, you guys can, that's fine. I'm happy to go through the punishment, but this was 100%. It's not ridiculous. I'm not doing anything bad, you know. I'm only having a conversation for you. Like, I told you I've never met anyone that went to prison before. But yeah, I mean, you know.
I think, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, in that scenario, you looked at it as a ridiculous rule.
It was a
and you could-
ridiculous rule.
And it allowed you to see past the illusion of this isn't just something I should do. This is something that someone's telling me to do.
It's a really silly
and your
rule.
values were more important than that rule. So
Yeah.
therefore you broke it.
So is that what you're doing is what I'm trying to get to.
In that scenario, most scenarios.
It is?
Yeah. I've learnt now that I can't break the law because that's bad and that's going to get me into
Yeah.
trouble. But before, that kind of rebellious nature of you
okay.
saying, no, I care about doing this more than the rule that's set upon me was pretty much my default.
But I
in
handed
every
myself
scenario.
in. Did you hand yourself in?
No.
Okay. Which brings us to prison. Like what is prison even like?
Well, I went to prison quite a few times. It wasn't just once. I went to
How
prison
many times were you in prison?
3 times. The first time when I was 18. Now that was very different. You're going to be amazed by my answer, but I'll tell you the truth. So, I quite enjoyed it, which people find really really
You enjoyed
interesting.
prison?
Yeah, I enjoyed both times, and both for different
How
reasons.
did you enjoy prison?
Because there's an element of chaos that I'm attracted to, and this actually brings me back to the question you asked me earlier about why were you fighting, and there's an element of I wanted significance, and I felt that through the power of violence, and I could get an element of significance, but also it was, now I realize, a searching to feel, because with that adrenaline, and it becomes a sensation. And the more that was more of a physiological reaction in my body, it was still kind of something. That's why a lot of people with an antisocial personality disorder will use drink and drugs, because they're just trying to
definitely heard this.
stimulate themselves. So I think that fighting was a way of doing that. But also chaos and sabotage also gave me an element of feeling and adrenaline. And yeah,
You got a rise out of it. You like it.
Yeah,
You're
I got
like,
a kick out of
I
it.
like
Yeah.
It's my adrenaline and all the hormones, and it's affecting you in like psychologically, physically, those chemicals.
Yeah.
You like that sort of feeling. Wow. And then in prison, so you were getting that as well? I mean,
Yeah, because it was just extreme. I like the idea of extreme. Like, I really don't like the idea of normality, and everyday life
but
is
what's in prison that's extreme? Sorry for interrupting.
because it's just chaos. It's just fighting. It's just,
People fighting in there all the time?
well, the first one I went to was young offenders, so it was 18 to 21 years old, and these people have no idea of consequences. They just want to get worse crimes. Actually, they're actually trying
Lovely.
to get more sentence.
Perfect.
The first thing they ask you is what you're in for, because then you get ranked by how bad your crime was.
really?
And my belief system started getting warped to the fact that I was thinking, I need to come back here another time for a more serious crime.
Oh, no.
But I just
You're hanging around with the wrong crowd.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I mean, it's just like, for example, a lot of people when they're younger, they like going out, getting drunk in the park, and well, maybe I did, and smashing windows, and I just liked all that stuff. I enjoyed it. I got a kick out of it. And I did it when I went to prison. But that was a very different time. And I went in again, young offenders, a little bit after that. But the next time I had a big
Did you
gap.
upgrade your offence? So that
Yeah,
you-
yeah, I did, yeah. So the next time I
no.
went in for GBH,
What's that?
grievous bodily harm. So I put a man in a coma.
No.
Yeah, that was the main thing. Well, I've actually put 2 people in a coma.
You didn't.
So I've done GBH before, but I didn't go to prison for it because I was on trial for 2 years.
You didn't mean to put them into a coma.
No,
you just, it probably went too far, but you didn't mean to do that.
No, I didn't mean to.
That's intense.
Yeah. Well, I didn't put the 2 people in a coma, sorry. I gave 2 people a brain hemorrhage. One of them went into a coma.
So you were really fighting, really badly, and getting into...
Well, actually, I mean, I was. Those particular scenarios actually is more unlucky, I think.
This just got really serious really
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, you went to prison. It's like, I actually did that. That's...
So this is where the psychopathy, because it's interesting,
Okay.
if you look at the psychopathy checklist, most of it is behavioural. So most of it is the things that you're doing, which is interesting because I've learnt to harness my behaviour, and I've developed my mind, and I've become more cognitively aware, I've trained myself, I've learned how to access empathy on a more of a brain level than a body level, and all these things. I don't necessarily display as many of the checklist points as I used to, but I still display the ones that are more of a biological response.
Like what?
I don't feel empathy. I don't feel fear. I don't really feel any emotion other than things that stimulate me. So that's why the significance, the attention, the fame, the success, those are the things that kind of
so
make
you've
me
met
feel...
You've got your new thing in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't mind admitting it. Like, most people are like, oh, I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be in the spotlight.
Yeah,
Like,
I was going to ask you, how do you feel about that? I mean,
it gives me something. I've got to find something, right? Because otherwise I do feel flat and I do feel empty. There is a numbness to me that this is why people sometimes go out there, get very depressed, and end up killing people, because they want to feel. I can tell you that's probably one of the main reasons they do it.
and do you think a lot, they're undiagnosed, basically? They don't know. A lot of them must be, because what did it take for you to get a diagnosis?
So I committed a load of very violent crimes in a very short period of time. And I was going to court, and my probation officer sent me for a pre-sentence report. Mm-hmm. Sorry, the court sent me to probation for a pre-sentence report, and that's where they analyse you and usually take into consideration background factors, and then they recommend sentencing for the judge. It's not like how you sort of see it on the TV where they make their minds up on the day. Like it's usually a bit of a process.
They went through all the background.
And it's known to be in your absolute best behaviour on this pre-sentence report, because you're supposed to be presenting yourself well so that you get a favourable sentence. But I turned up there and I just had my arms crossed and I was like,
oh no,
do your worst, you know. And there's like, do you not, because at the time I was actually on a trial. I shouldn't laugh, but just because how extreme it is, I was actually on trial for 4 GBHs, because me and my friend had a fight with 4 guys, and I blacked out drunk, and
you must be a terrible person to get into a fight with.
I was. It used to be, because I used to
terrible.
Like the psychopathic kind of, my eyes would glaze over. I couldn't see it. I don't remember anything, and
Did people not see that in you and go, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry," and run away? Did they not? Who would want to pick a fight with you? Like,
well, lots of people back then, because they didn't know who I was, and I wouldn't win all the time. Most of them I would, because I wouldn't stop.
You didn't care though, did you?
No, I enjoyed it. See, that's another thing I enjoyed. I quite liked the fighting. It was like a self-sabotage release. It was a release of anger, adrenaline.
Okay. What I find uncomfortable, right, with this is that surely you would know, and maybe you didn't know, I don't know, but surely, like, even if you are, I don't know about drugs, but let's say drunk and you're fighting with someone, surely you would know that sort of limit of how much you can hurt them. Or does that just go,
no,
that you would know if I, do something more that will
you got
cross
to think
the,
that
did you know?
I grew up and my friends were also violent, and we were proud of it. That's the truth. Like,
the whole group was proud of it.
Everyone was proud.
Were they also psycho? I mean, why are they proud of violence?
Not necessarily, but I mean, it's a nature and nurture thing. You can either inherently have like a desire for, I mean, violence, I guess. It sounds quite extreme to say that. Or you can, just learn to be a lad. I mean, this is not part of where you've grown up, right? But I can tell you there's a big part of the population that, you go down the pub and it's like you're telling about the fight you had last night, and you get more popularity and more girls for the better fight you had.
I can understand that a bit, but I think there's a line between, fighting and then fighting.
There is as a mature 35-year-old man that's educated himself around right and wrong, but as a 18-year-old lad that had no parental guidance around what's right and wrong, and only a group of friends that were doing that.
The group of friends aren't bad. Like you're all influencing each other.
I mean, I was probably one of the worst, but
you were.
Yeah,
you probably were. So you got to be careful who you hang out with. I'm a
very
good
careful.
Influence, by the way.
You got to be you have got to be very careful. Like it's 100% that,
I mean,
and I was it was a lot of few people I know have been killed. One of my friends got stabbed and murdered with one kitchen knife to the heart on a night out. Few people I know have been killed by one punches. It's just kind of, I don't know because I'm not on the scene anymore. I should imagine it's still there, but there's just a big community and belief and societal group of people that just for some reason get a bit of a kick out of that.
I'm really glad I'm not hanging out in that crowd.
Yeah. Me too.
Too much anxiety, and you too. No, you're not. You're not doing that. How much were drugs affecting that, messing with people's minds?
I say it fueled it. Yeah, so I would say that was a part of it. Alcohol, definitely. For me, I could control myself when I was sober. Not all the time, but most of the time. But when alcohol came into the picture,
is alcohol worse than drugs for fighting?
It depends who you are. For me, it is.
Really?
Because if anything, cocaine, which is what I used to take, it did get me aggressive, but it also kind of, in a way, sobered me up, and it didn't mellow me, but it made me a bit more insular. When I'm explosive on alcohol, like I can just take off. With alcohol, with cocaine, I can be a bit more wide, but sort of a little bit more to myself. But
really, I heard that cocaine was it made people outgoing and more hyper.
Oh, it does.
But maybe with you, it was a different.
It did also make me confident and have a good time and life and soul of the party. But I kind of had my rationale still there a little bit. But then when you mix them both, what I would do is I would drink alcohol, sober myself up with cocaine, cocaine, and then it gets to the point where I was just gone. So it's called actually cocaephyllene. It's a different chemical compound when you mix alcohol and cocaine, and it calls cocaephyllene. That's what it is.
Terrible.
And that is a very dangerous combination. Because if you black out and you're just high on coke, for example, then yeah, that's when I just would do the craziest stuff and not remember anything.
Okay. You're not doing that anymore.
No.
You're not taking those...
And I just want to sort of explain that I'm
Yeah.
not taking any pride in that now. You know, it's just I'm being truthfully honest with where I was at the time, because I had no awareness around that behavior and had no idea of the consequences. And because I didn't feel that natural empathy or remorse, whether it's because I was never taught it, explained it, displayed it, or never had the ability to feel it.
Well, I can tell you something, speaking to you, that you've got guts to say it all. That's why I keep asking you, are you sure you're okay to say this? And I know you've done a Netflix documentary, but I'm also aware that you're a human being. You've got your family, you've got people that, you know, care about you. You don't want to affect others as well, even if you don't care so much about yourself. It's like, I'm conscious, you know, who I bring on, and I don't want to do anything to harm you, you know. I don't want anything bad to happen. I want people to understand that it takes a lot of guts to say this. And I know that you don't get scared in a way, like a normal, not normal, I don't even know how to say, non-psychopath. What's the psychopathy?
Empath. Well, that's the opposite.
Empathetic,
but anyway,
yeah. Someone without that diagnosis would react. But it does take guts. And what I think, and I have a hunch that you're right about, is that many have this undiagnosed diagnosis within them. The way that people behave, the things you see, you know, also the crime stories that happen, and a lot of young people, and there will be these cocktails of the drugs, and these things happen, and then you kind of think, well, yeah, you've probably, no one sat down with you and actually looked into your brain and had a little look and go, are you all right? Like, do you need some help here?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's a proven fact that 1% of the population are psychopaths. 1%. So out of every 100 people you know, there's one that is.
There's going to be
a diagnosed one. But most people are never going to go and get diagnosed for it. They don't want that label attached to them, and they don't understand themselves, because it's difficult to compare yourself with other people. It's although I had this diagnosis, it didn't really hit home until much later on in my life that I was actually on that spectrum. And it was mainly when I was actually coaching other people and listening to other people and just realizing I'm just not like these people. That was when I thought, oh, actually that diagnosis makes sense now, because I thought they just labeled me with something because I've been bad, done something wrong. And they must be mentally ill in this way. Because I've had different diagnoses. I've had bipolar as well, and emotionally unstable, which is also borderline personality disorder.
Yes.
So I've had like multiple diagnoses, and I kind of just think, how is this guy that's spoken to me for an hour can tell me about myself? You just can't get your head around the fact I've done all these things, so you've just chalked it up to this. But then it was later on in life where I thought, oh, actually, I've changed my behavior, I've changed my life, my identity, but these things still remain. And it was at that point where I realized, okay, there probably is some truth to it.
Well, you can help a lot of people. I mean, that's for sure. People that have gone through really bad stuff. You know, when you've been there, you've been to the prisons as well. You know what it's like. You know what it's like to be in court. You know what it's like to hurt other people. And in fact, you know what it's like. Then you can speak to them from that place. You know, I've been in that dark place. So that brought you to coaching, and you are... People won't know this, but on our pre-podcast call that we had, you are such a coach. Like, you actually are, like, naturally, it just comes forward. And you started to coach me. And I was like, okay. But in a way, it's like, hang on, I'm interviewing you here. But you do have this sort of a naturally mentoring thing about you. You do. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was like I mentioned, I see everyone as equal. So you were probably thinking, oh, he's coming on my podcast show.
That's a huge.
Yeah, but I was thinking,
no,
you could do with some help.
Yeah, you're like, well, this is what you. Yeah, I was like, hang on. No, but it's like a natural mentoring thing where you want to help someone, and you went like, okay, look, and it's very direct. I'm not used to it. Yeah, I'm like. But it's also
that's my approach, and that's why being able to become very successful in what I do, because it's a very different angle. Because if you're a lot of people are worried about what they're going to say, how it's going to come across, how that person's going to react. They're skating around subjects because they know that it's going to be uncomfortable for the person to hear. Yeah. And with me, I don't get that, so I just cut through it and just.
How do you live your life? So you like your coaching business? You enjoy it?
Yeah. To be honest, I do less coaching now, because obviously I've become a CEO. That was never the plan. When I started out, I was helping people for free in Costa Coffee, just trying to help.
You were?
Yeah, because I came out of rehab. So the story was I went to jail. You know, we missed the kind of rock bottom bit. But anyway,
Yeah. We'll go. Let's. Yeah. Okay. Let's. No, continue, and then we'll go back
Yeah.
to.
So I went to prison. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll explain that. So I didn't have
Yeah.
a rock bottom moment. That's the truth. That's what I was saying. You're gonna be
That
surprised.
you
to
were
hear.
saying that. You
Yeah,
were saying
I
that.
didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. I
There
still
was
didn't
no-
really see that much of a problem with it. That's the problem, you know. That is the problem. I didn't see the problem, you know. If anything, I used to look. I remember that I was sitting in a prison bus, in this tiny little cubicle in the prison buses, going to jail, handcuffed, and just looking at people walking to work and going, "I'm glad I'm not you," because I thought that I was at least living my life in some capacity compared to these people that were just living this mundane. Like that. Well, it didn't scare me, but that was what I wanted to avoid. That's what I didn't like the idea of, because that
Going
would,
to work that much.
yeah,
the
because
commuter.
it would mimic that kind of baseline flatness that I knew that I didn't want.
Wow.
So yeah, I didn't see a problem with what I was doing because my belief system was so warped that, yeah, I said there's an element of pride. Even going to prison, I was like, oh yeah, people are going to know, they talk about me. Lewis has gone to prison. I kind of like that. It's weird. And I look back at it now, I have a completely different belief system where I don't think that way before. But at the time, I remember, you know, not really, but almost being quite excited to go back and be like, oh, I'm going to jail for a couple of years this time, and you know,
No.
cool. I'm going to tell everyone I was there for GBH this time, and new chapter. You know, that's how I saw it. But there was a moment where I had my realization. So it wasn't from a rock bottom. You know, I would like to say it came from hurting this guy. The truth is, I hit him. He hit his ground on the floor. He hit his head on the ground, and he was in a coma for 3 days. And
Yeah.
I would like to say that was my rock bottom, but it just wouldn't be the truth. You know, I didn't see that as my rock bottom. I didn't feel it. For me, I didn't know him. I didn't have any ability to understand or empathize with him. I kind of felt like just in my actions, to be honest, because he shouted at me in a taxi queue. So my response was, if I'm being honest, probably deserved it. That's how brutal I was. And the thing I regretted the most was the fact that I got caught, because I was right in front of a camera. So I just looked up at the camera and I saw it, and then I just thought, okay, I'm going to prison, because I thought I'd killed him at the time, because he went face down.
Oh my God.
And he went face down,
Okay.
and he was passed out and his face on the ground, and then this big slow dark trickle of blood come out of his head.
No.
And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to jail, so I have to wait and put my hands up. I put my coat over him.
You didn't think that's a life, that's someone's partner, I mean, and how old was the man?
He was actually, so this is something that sounds even worse. I was 25 at the time, and I didn't know, but he was 40, which now we know that isn't actually that old. But at the time, when I heard that, I was thinking, wow, he's significantly older. I feel like I've hit an old man. But I didn't know at the time. See, this is what I don't want to do. I don't want to minimize or justify my actions, but I do want to explain the rationale. So one of the things that did happen that night, which was unusual to other nights, is I was very triggered. So my dad used to call me a buffoon, tell me I never amount to anything. He would hit me. And that's been a big factor in kind of this anger that I have and this violence, I think. There's this nature and nurture debate. Are you born a psychopath? Do you create a psychopath? And the argument usually falls in between. There's got to be a bit of both. It's like you have this predisposition to it, and then through your environment, it can be exaggerated or it can be brought out.
It's correct what you're saying. There's a predisposition, but that doesn't mean it's predetermined. And therefore, because you're predisposed, and if you have been in these situations and done that, you can reverse it as well if you're determined to do so, which
or manage it.
I mean, have you reached out to the man to apologize, or you're able to do
I mean,
that?
I tried to do restorative justice and things,
Yes.
but he didn't want to participate in that. And
But you tried it. Good.
yeah, and there's a lot of cognitive I understand that's wrong, and I wish that never had happened to him, but at the time I just didn't know what that felt like.
Okay. So how do you? So you apologized to him, and you wanted to rehabilitate yourself. So what was that like? What steps did you take?
Well, to be honest,
to work on yourself?
Like I said, that wasn't the turning point for me. So that just happened. My immediate reaction was more, okay, I'm going to jail. So I got sentenced to prison for. I would have got 3 years, but they gave me 18 months for pleading guilty at the scene. And then I it was when I went to prison, I rang up my friends and I was kind of saying, what are people saying about me? And I was on the paper, violent and boorish, paralytic man, attacks in taxi queue and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And then they said, oh, but your friend has posted a picture of you the day you were sentenced. And there was a picture out of me outside the courtroom. And then there was a picture of me outside the exact same courtroom 7 years before when I'd been to jail another time. But he'd written up at the top, nothing changes, as the caption. And it's strange because loads of people had told me things in the past and I kind of brushed it off because, again, I was like, I'm not listening to them. But because it came from my friend, I was kind of, it just hit me and I was like, what does he mean? Because he was just as bad as me. But because he said that, I kind of listened because it was my friend. And I thought, what does he mean by nothing changes? And then I kind of actually just realised, 7 years before, I'm in the same prison. The same courtroom, different prison. But I'm back in a cell. And I realised that if nothing, there's a saying that I've picked up since, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And I did realise that I was doing the same things. There's another saying, but I've picked up some vocabulary to explain these situations. But if you keep doing the same things over and over again, you're going to get the same result. Mm-hmm. And that's the definition of insanity. Totally. Yeah. And I realised, that I couldn't keep doing it. So it was more of a selfish, I don't want to go back to prison.
Well, you'd be there again.
Yeah.
So you didn't. So then, you realise, actually, I do want to be the guy that's on the outside and not the guy that's in the car going to prison.
Yeah,
all the time.
Yeah, because I was a bit older now, and I kind of got the realization that this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life. But it wasn't the full realization. So that was the penny drop. Oh, okay. And then my story sounds like something you would write in a bloody fictional book. But I went back to my cell and I looked in the mirror, and we don't have mirrors. We just have these scratched off pieces of metal. You can barely even see yourself. It's just because mirrors can be used as like blades or whatever. So I just about caught my reflection, and as cheesy as it sounds, I kind of saw myself for the first time. I was like, oh. And I realized in that moment that I was the problem, because I didn't see myself as the problem, and I didn't even see there being a problem in what I was doing, really. But I realized, okay, nothing's changed, so I do need to do something different. And why does this keep happening? How come I keep on ending up back in jail? And I realised that I was refusing to accept responsibility for myself and blaming everything and everyone around me and being like, just the way things are, no one wants to help me. It's always going to be like this, using that story. But I realised, no, I'm the problem, but I'm also the solution. And in that moment, I kind of got this exaggerated idea of what change in my life could be like. So I thought I could change my name, I could move country, I could be this different, I could reinvent myself. And I kind of like the idea of the other extreme, because I was addicted to extremities. I hated the idea of normality, but I was taking the easy route of crime and chaos. But I realized, I could also go for this other end, which is a really amazing life.
Paint it to me. What is this other end? What does it look like?
Well, at that time, I was thinking kind of still a little bit warped. So I was kind of thinking more, I could change my name and I could pretend I came from a different background, and I could just, make up this story of who I was and just start all over. Yeah. And it was kind of like a bit of a dream, like a fantasy of all this, And then it started. But then at the moment I realized that I could change and I wanted to change, my whole viewpoint changed to the point where everything that I saw was different. So we talk a lot about it in the coaching training, when we have these filters in our brain that delete, distort, and generalize information. So before I was like, I don't want anyone's help. There's no one wants to help me. I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm not the problem. And I was just seeing specific things that reinforced that message. But the moment I decided I wanted to change, I was like, there's maths and English programs, I could do that. There's rehabilitation program, I could sign up for that. We could go to the gym. And they're just everywhere. Just support everywhere.
All these resources,
it was there the whole time,
suddenly opened up to you.
Yeah. And I just started doing it.
Oh my God, it's like you've had to discover the world again, and then it's almost like the computer games. You've played computer games before, where another world opens up to you. And
actually, I haven't played computer games, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, you kind of go around and you'll have depending on the level, you'll operate in one world, and then you can go to another level, and then it's completely different. And it's like you have reinvented yourself. But that's, it's almost like you had to take yourself, maybe because of your upbringing, because I can't even imagine what it's like not to feel loved, by your parents. So that's blimmin' awful.
And for someone to say,
a
like,
little person like that.
those realizations that I
Yeah.
had, it took me 25 years to have them, but usually you'd have a parent telling you it every
Telling
week.
you that, that's why I think
Yeah.
rubbish parents are just so bad for society. Like when they don't know. But then again, as well, like thank God that you came to that realization, because although you had a rubbish childhood, that doesn't mean you've got to have a rubbish adulthood, you know, and you can definitely turn it around. And you have.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, everything was stacked against me in terms
Yeah.
of the ability to
Everything
change.
was
because
stacked against you.
Psychopathy, which isn't,
Yeah.
you know, like we'll go into it, but it isn't a diagnosed. It's not in the DSM, the diagnostic manual. You can't actually be a diagnosed psychopath. It's a label that people put on the extreme end of the spectrum of people that have an antisocial personality disorder, and that's what I was diagnosed with. So when I went for that pre-sentence report, they give me a psychiatric assessment and they diagnosed me with that.
Okay.
I didn't think much of it. But yeah, later on in life, I realized,
But it's significant, and it affects your behavior.
yeah.
It affects the way that you rationalize everything. Everything.
But what I was going to say is that is actually uncurable. So there's no cure for it. It's you can only learn to manage it. Even the personality disorder, not even psychopathy. The personality disorder, there is no proven cure whatsoever.
There's no tablet you can take.
There's no tablet, there's no therapy, there's no nothing. I mean, I'm proof that you can manage it and you can very much use it to your advantage. But there's nothing so far that says that you can just reverse it.
Let's just be completely frank here. So out of all the people watching, okay, I'm going to post this, people are going to watch, guaranteed there's going to be people with serious, like they're going to have personality problems. They're going to be awkward, weird, maybe not empathetic, maybe they're horrible, maybe they overly shy. There are no one watching is going to have this perfect personality. So everyone watching 100% will benefit from the fact that you've been honest about it, said, I have this thing in my personality. I recognize it as an actual problem and I'm going to actually do something about it. That is power. Like that's genuinely something everyone can take. And the reason I've got you on, you have transformed your life. You have done horrible things, and you know that you unfortunately going to have to live with that. And you want to be better. You have apologized. You want to improve your life, and you've since then taken it. You've built a business, which is a blimming hard thing to do for anyone. And you've taken it to really good levels. Like you're doing very, very well. And you've got the Netflix documentary. So how do you think that your personality is, and you know, the personality disorder has actually helped you to build a successful business?
If I was to summarize it in a really cheesy cliche way, it's just focusing on what you do have rather than what you don't. And because, for example, if a deaf person can probably see better, and someone that's blind can hear better, you adapt, you evolve, and you compensate.
Yeah. Okay.
So because I'm less emotionally reactive, I become more cognitively aware. So I feel like I have an advantage strategically because my brain has had to evolve and adapt to be able to navigate. So I see everything like a map, like a visual representation.
Okay, give me some examples. So like you want to get a client.
Yeah.
What's going through your head?
So I will see like client, and then I'll see every step from where I am now or where I was or whoever it is, and it can be anyone. And I'll gather information, and it will just come into a map, and I'll see every step of exactly how to do it. And I can see it right there in front of me, and I can move the bits around, and I get extra information. It all fits into the puzzle. And then, but the thing is, there are some people that have that. So there are some people that are strategic, that get things. There's some people that don't. So if you don't, you've got to learn it, right? But some people just get it. They don't need to learn. Like I haven't really learned. I just get it.
Okay.
But then some people have that. But then what they don't have is the ability to bypass the emotions that are going to hold them back. Because a lot of people know what they need to do, but they don't do what they know. So they have a strategy, they have a plan, but the fear, the insecurity, the doubt
massive,
of every step of the journey just holds them back or makes them take 10 times as long. Or
even
makes them
should
to
I
question.
post, shouldn't I post? Oh, people are going to say this and that about me.
And that to me,
fear it.
To give you an example of kind of the way that my brain works, it's so absent, those types of feelings, that I find it absolutely bizarre. Like I just, I look at people sometimes and I'm literally, it's like I'm looking at an alien. Like when they're crying or stressing or they're anxious or they're having panic attacks or
I get anxious.
I understand it. I
don't think I'm an alien.
No, I don't mind it when it's. I can understand it cognitively, and I can understand it when it's something significant, like if it's a big deal. But what I really don't get is when people create these scenarios that actually not even drama, but they just create a scenario that doesn't exist. What if this happens and then that happens?
I do that. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and I just think, well, that's never going to happen, and you know it. Well, you don't know it. That's the problem.
How do you know?
Well, because it has happened before.
It might do.
Well, it might do, but it might not, and that's what I tend to think about. You know, I think about logically what is actually going to happen, not what. Because what happens is you have an emotion that causes a reaction, and that causes you to think. Yeah. And then that thinking creates your behavior, and the behavior creates your results.
Yes.
But I don't have the emotional response, so I just get what is the logical outcome here. Not some emotional reaction that creates the wrong logical conclusion.
Would you like to get into my head for a minute? So what you just said, I am the complete opposite to you. So I will think of one scenario, I will think about literally about 10, 15 things that can potentially happen so that I can be prepared for every single one of those. And some of them will make me very anxious. Some of them less so. But I can't help it. So I will really think about everything, and it probably will never materialize, but I will analyze it to the nth degree, and I will have all of those thoughts all at the same time, all in my head, and sometimes it's like but I will have them, and it's made me good in some ways, but it's definitely held me back for sure. It's given me too much anxiety, definitely. But I see life like a chessboard. So when I love chess, and I'm pretty good at chess, but I see many moves ahead of what might or might not transpire. So that's how I think.
Yeah, so you've got one piece of in my mind, my advantage. You've got
only one piece.
Yeah, you've got the strategic chess playing, but
now you're competing with me.
But no, but what I'm saying is my advantage. You would see because you can use your advantages to strengths. Like empathy, it allows me to deeply understand and connect with people and build relationships. So you have your own strengths, but for me, I just have a strategic plan and steps, and nothing I think about other than just taking that step and that step and that step, and I just take every single one and I get right to the top very quick.
And you get to 25 million, so you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's everything I want to do, and also I can departmentalize as well. So if I've got so you're thinking of a load of things that aren't going to happen. But also there's obviously...
Some do.
If you've got a load of things...
Some do.
Yeah, and also I would... Even if they happen, I don't care about it, you know? It's like, I don't have I'm just like, if that happens, so what? I'm not competing, I'm just trying to give you a perspective.
No. Okay. No, it's competing now. Let's compete.
Because I'll be like, I'll either learn from it or I'll get through it or whatever. You know, it is what it is. So... I forget exactly where we were.
Let me just say, so my USP then, so yes, and my thing is the caring.
Yeah.
So I care so deeply.
Yeah.
That's what makes me good. Otherwise I wouldn't be able, if I don't care emotionally about making something really good and amazing for myself, for my client, I can't pretend, like there's no pretending. I can't fake it. I am completely and utterly driven by emotion. It's weird because it's the complete.
Yeah, I would say there's two parts of that. One part is to be honoured and owned and be like, yes, I do care. But then you've got to be careful not to let that blur the lines into justifying kind of all these other things.
Totally.
Because they're not to do with other people. Like you're caring actually about yourself because it's the outcomes that you're scared about that you're thinking about.
Well, it's also the outcomes for my clients. Yeah, because if they don't succeed, I don't succeed.
So you're telling me
we're together in the same team.
This anxiety that you feel around all these million things at once.
Yeah.
Is partly your clients, I should imagine. Yes. All areas of your life.
I'm afraid that's how it is.
Yeah.
So so even if I wake up at night, so if I'm waking up at night, it could be a client thing, and I'm worrying about their business. But I'm worrying because I'm responsible for things, and I will worry that if I don't get it right for them, then also it's not right for me. But I will worry about that. I will really worry about it.
So it's interesting because, again, I don't want this to be like the empath psychopath.
No, but
compete,
in a way, we seem, in a way.
Yeah, I understand. We're driven from the same place of wanting that outcome, but like in a very narcissistic, arrogant, grandiose place, I just know I'll get the result. So I don't care.
Hey, I get the results.
Yeah,
too.
I'm sure you do.
No, but I don't always get the results.
You're taking what I say as some form of attack on you.
No, I'm not. I love it. I tell you what, I'm not. I literally see my shortfalls in you. Like I actually do. So I love this. I think it's really good because I feel that emotion, fear, also too much worry, it burns you out. You're not going to get, I listen, I know, like completely, I'm totally aware of the bad things, like the things that aren't going to push me forward. And I can see that having a cool head and strategically going forward and blocking out the noise. There's even this like, I don't even know if it's a parable or if it's one of those little stories about this guy who's trying to get to the top of the mountain. And loads have tried before him, but they failed because when they've looked at these things that try and distract them, these creatures or gremlins, then you turn to stone and you become one of them. I don't know if you've heard that story.
Yeah.
And you've just got to like,
Well, using that same story, though, I'll tell you why. I will flip it back so you don't feel so attacked by it. It's not, you asked me to explain the advantages, but there's huge disadvantages to it. So I can climb that mountain for the rest of my life and I will never care that I've got to the top. Because I just keep putting more snow on top. You know,
you're going to want the next thrill.
I'm going to want the next thrill. Yeah. So when you get a good result for a climb and they say, "Oh my God, I'm so happy," that's like your reward. You must be so.
Okay, can I explain to you?
Yeah.
So this is also the weird thing. So I am never, I think we spoke about this before. I will never take a compliment or an insult ever too seriously. So I'm always remaining neutral on it. So it never really, it's not that I don't believe it. I'll be like, yeah, you've said that, great, but it doesn't affect me in that way. So I'm never satisfied, but in a different way to you, because I always feel like it's not good enough. It's still not, something could go wrong. You see, something could go wrong, maybe, so I'm never ever, but I'm also not like totally destroyed by it. I'm not like, it just works out, It's the same with trolling or compliment. If someone says, oh, you're this or that, or good or bad, they will neutralize each other in the end. I feel like I'm quite grounded in that way. So I don't need it. I don't need the verification of it, but it never really gives me that ultimate high, what you're saying.
Well, yeah, because what I'm just going to make just a wild assumption because it'll take ages to question, but sounds like you're a bit of a perfectionist. That can sometimes manifest itself from low self-worth, and it can be, I assume that other people are going to treat me like this because that's actually how I feel about myself. And the problem is, because the negative comments can feel that's the worst thing a perfectionist can hear, because that's the last thing they ever want to hear, is that they've done something bad or wrong. So sometimes you can create a defense that blocks you from feeling that feedback. Like, so I don't care what haters say. Actually, you do. But you want to tell yourself, I don't, because that keeps you safe and keeps you from feeling the immense pain that you know that you put on yourself. But the problem is, if you shut off that part, you shut off the opposite part. So if you say, I'm not going to care what haters think, you're basically saying, I don't care about opinions. And you put this block up that will also stop you from feeling the praise and the gratitude from when you do get it right. You just become neutral.
Yeah, that's interesting. So are you possibly onto something? I would say that it doesn't come from low self-worth, because I've always had decent self-worth. I've always believed in myself. I haven't had low self-worth. I'm a pretty confident person. So I wouldn't say that, but I hear you.
So why, if you don't have low self-worth, why would you question everything that you do?
I question the good and the bad, because I always think so many other things can happen. Nothing is fixed in time. Nothing stays the same. Nothing is guaranteed. It's ever evolving. And you have to work to stay on top, because you can fall off at any second. And
when you said that, you said you can fall off at any second.
Yeah.
Are you talking about me?
Everyone. Life. It's not only me, it's everybody.
So it is you. So you could fall off at any second.
Everyone and me. I'm not immune to falling off from... You have to keep working. You have to keep... Yeah.
Try it with I. See how that feels.
I have to keep working.
Yeah, all those things
You're coaching me.
Just try it with I and see how it feels.
No. Who's doing the interview?
Both of us. It's a conversation, isn't it?
No, we're not. I'm doing the interview. But I appreciate that. we approach it from different ways. But like I told you, I totally understand the merit, and I do work in many ways to be a little bit like you, in the sense that try and block out the unnecessary noise, I would call it, those statues, and just go, because it wastes energy, because you're just getting, and you sometimes just got to run that race and finish, get it done, lick wounds if you need to, have an electrolyte drink, whatever it might be, and then go again, repeat. But it never ends. That's the thing. So why aren't you happy with, like, what about you getting to that pedestal, Netflix, this, that? Or you're not celebrating?
Yeah.
You're not happy?
To be honest, I'm very aware that I know that it's not my ultimate desire. I know that my longing comes from actually wanting to feel loved, and that I've substituted that for a quest for significance and fame and success. But I know that it's wrong, because I'm too aware to know that that's just bullshit. All right.
Yeah. But
I kind of keep the program playing in my own brain consciously, knowing that it's serving me. So it's my life's still better. It's better than it was before. So I'm not going to say I don't want to be successful. I know that ultimately it's not going to be my destination. It's not going to give me what I need. But my subconscious thinks that it does at the moment. So I kind of let that program play out for a little bit longer until I have more things that I want. And then I'll probably try and break it down even further, because sometimes you can turn something off and it can affect your results or the directory of your life. And right now it's moving in a good direction. I know that it won't lead. Yeah, I like where I am. I like where I'm going, and it's moving in the right direction, but not the exact destination. And I know that if I can just move myself forward for now, I know that I'll be able to recalibrate at a later stage to give me something.
Okay, so
more
you've
true.
set your sails. I like the way. So you are literally doing what you said that you do, and you've got your plan, and there is a destination, and you just it's almost like
To be honest, I don't know what the ultimate destination is, because I know that I want to feel loved and fulfilled, and I know every layer of success I've achieved, it reconfirms to me more so that I'm not going to get what I want from it. But it's still good to have. So I don't know if I'll ever be able to really truly feel love. I'm working on it. I've done lots of deep work, lots of plant medicine, lots of healers, lots of crazy things, all sorts of different therapies, and it flickers every now and again. And I do some like breath work or some mushrooms in the jungle, and I will
mushrooms in the jungle.
Yeah.
Come on.
Plant.
Really?
I've done a few different plant medicines, from peyote to bufo, which is like frog poison, and it sends you to outer space in terms of, but because I'm on a quest to heal. If I can be the first person to cure psychopathy, then brilliant.
I'm with you. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the way that you've been educating yourself. It's a really important part, and I want to go into this. And you were correcting. Let's just have a look. Let's go back to slide 1. Right, education. You didn't pursue a PhD. You've got a PhD.
Yeah, I've got one. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you really want to educate yourself. Like, that's just you want to grow all the time. You want to read books. You want to do all these things. So talk to me about why education is so important to you, and how is it different to traditional education?
Yeah, I mean, this is a difficult one to unpack, but I think nowadays the reason why I crave it is because it gives me stimulation, which is like a sensation. It's not a feeling, but it's something close to it, you know. So when I keep myself busy and stimulated and learning and growing,
reading all these books and studying is stimulating to you. You are definitely different. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And without it, I just feel
no, that's good.
Numb,
that's cool.
That's
cool.
I actually, for example, a lot of people try and create work-life balance, and they try. For me, I'm the opposite. I put on work when I feel things are like not chaos. I'm like, I need more. I need to feel. I almost want to feel that cortisol in my bloodstream. I want to feel stressed. I want to have that kind of fight or flight. Let's get shit done.
Actually, in that way, we have something again in common.
Yeah.
I hate stress, but I'm addicted to stress. That's why I do stressful things.
Yeah, me too. And it's just, I think, another craving of feeling something. Because feeling nothing is not nice. Trust me, it's a feeling of emptiness, hollowness, flatness, numbness, pointlessness.
But why can't you just go for a walk in nature and like look at the nice greenery and watch the wind blowing through the trees? And
Because
like,
it means absolutely nothing to me.
no,
I
it's not
just
nothing.
look at
Go
it.
and smell a flower.
It's
Look,
to
it's a
you.
rose. It's got scent.
Yeah.
You know, look at animals, a
sounds-
fox, a
Sounds
badger.
lovely.
It's
Sounds lovely.
nice. It's the
Sounds
sun on
lovely.
your skin.
I mean, I get it a
Can't
little
you
bit.
just sort
I
of
get it just
chill
about. I
and-
mean, I have to travel the world and go to some really beautiful
Yeah.
places to just about go. But it's not. It's
Come
not
on.
a profound
The English countryside. Just sit in the countryside.
grass.
Have you smelled grass? It's nice. It's sweet. It's like soft. It's no,
Grass.
no.
Just grass. Unfortunately, in my brain, that's the problem, or my body. I mean, I would love to feel like that. Do you know what? If I could swap everything that I have, that's difficult because it's like there's battle there. But I think deep down, if I was to be able to swap everything I have for just a normal life where I'm just fulfilled and I wake up and like, yeah, everything's good. You know, I'm happy. I would.
I don't think anyone can do that. I don't think anyone.
Well, I know a lot of people
Really?
that have nothing, but they're happy.
Yeah, no, they have nothing. They might be very. You mean money-wise, poverty?
Yes, some of them. Even some of them.
But I don't
I've
think-
seen.
yeah.
I went to Uganda and like fed kids that were on the street and built little houses for them and stuff. And I'm telling you, them kids, they're running around and they
Yeah,
are happy.
yeah. No,
kids.
that's different. I think that actually a lot of the people when they have less as well, it's like life is less complicated, and you don't have these sort of mental health, I would say, issues as well as in the modern world. I think in some ways we bring ourselves into the stressful situations. Whereas when you're forced to think about the essentials of life, go and get water, make sure that water is reasonably clean because you want to not die from drinking it, and go and milk the cow and go and do this, and let's cut the wood to keep, you're so busy. It's like you were saying, you're busy. You don't have time to think about all these other things.
Yeah.
You're living
Gratitude
a
can get
raw-
missed when you're out of perspective. You know, they have the
That's it.
perspective of the simple things that bring life. You know,
and they're smiling, and there is a bit of distortion, I think, for us. But I also think that life, we can get corrupted in ways. I mean,
I can't even remember the
this-
question.
I know with
education, right?
Education.
So so I was expelled from school at 15, and I signed up to maths and English in prison, functional skills level 1 and 2.
You did.
And
good.
it was actually just because they paid. Well, it was also because I wanted to work on myself, but you could get, I think it was £11 a week if you did education.
Awesome.
They paid you, or £10 if you worked like mopping the floor. So I was like, I get an extra £1.
Yeah.
I get an extra £1, and okay, let's work on myself. And but when I first went in there, I didn't look at the board. I screwed the paper up and I threw it, and I said, I'm not doing this shit at 25 years old. And it's just crazy when I think back on it. But I was just so defiant. And a prison tutor, sweet old lady Susie, sat down next to me, and she just said, what's the matter? And I don't think anyone ever asked me that before. And I just blurted out, I don't understand. And then I was really confused at why I'd said that, because I didn't even look at the board or look at the paper. So how did I know I didn't understand? I don't know. But I'd created this belief that I was stupid, because that's what my dad used to say to me. He used to call me a buffoon. And actually, I thought a buffoon... a buffoon is like a jester, like a clown. That word really stuck with me. And I just... Because that's the only
That's not
person
good.
I'd
That's
looked
not
up to of authority, I guess, at that time.
Yeah. He let you
Dad.
down. He let you down. Yeah.
I just assumed that he was right. And also I didn't do anything at school and I got expelled. And my whole life people told me I was bad, and I kind of linked that with being bad and useless and not smart. So, but she was like, well, give it a try. And then, okay, yeah, I kind of get it. And then I started to just do the work. She'd support me, and then I just got it. It was simple, obviously, because it was just like simple calculation. But
Simple for you, maybe.
But then I
Yeah.
thought, what's actually stopping me from thinking that, why? Now I'm kind of realizing that, okay, it's probably come from my dad. It hit me in the moment.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I wonder what I would do if I thought the opposite. So I was like, what about if I was smart and I didn't even know? So I said, can you give me like a test? And she said, I'm going to teach you how to do pi. It's like how to do the circumference of a
Yeah.
circle. I was like, okay, cool. And then she gave me this like written down a bit of paper. And then I came back and I said, I've memorized a pi to 100 decimal places the next day. And she was like, no, you haven't. And I was like, yeah, that's what you wanted me to do, right? And she said, no, you have to do a calculation. I was like, oh, I thought you wanted me to memorize it. And
Oh,
So
no
I
way.
came and I said I have, and then I just started going 3.14159265358979323846264333, and that is, I mean, I still remember it now. And
Okay.
and then she got all the other tutors from the other classrooms in to do it, and they were shouting out, "What's this decimal place I was writing on the board?" And then I said, "I'm going to do 500," and then I came back the next day and I did a 500, and then it was then she sat me down and had a conversation. It was like, "Okay, you can do a lot more than this."
Yeah.
And then I said, "Do you ever think I could go to university?" Because I just genuinely thought that was just not for people like me. You could leave at school at 16 back then.
Yeah.
And it was only, I don't know, they'd never, because I got expelled obviously at 15, and before then they weren't even starting to talk about kind of what you're going to do after school. I just assumed it was reserved for the smart kids. So she said, "Of course you can." And I just thought, oh. And it was a level of belief that no one had in me before, including myself. But I got it when she said it, because it was real. She was really certain about it. She was like, "Of course you can." Like, almost like, "You idiot. Of course you can."
Yeah.
And then, so I thought, okay, I'm going to go to uni then. So I went to rehab after prison for 6 months. It's a whole nother story. And then after that, I got accepted into an access course, which is the equivalent of A-levels in 1 year, shortened down to get you into uni.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? These kids were fresh out of school, and I was a 26-year-old mature student technically at the time.
Yeah.
And but I thought, you know what? I'm just going to try my hardest. I've never tried before. I'm just going to see what I've got. And I got a distinction in every module and every subject, and won an award at the end of the year.
Well,
It was obviously only college. It was only level 3 at the time, but it was
seriously.
It was
don't put it down.
Yeah.
Well done. Don't
Thank
say
you.
only.
But what I mean is, it wasn't like
well
this
done.
huge
Amazing.
achievement, but it was me trying my hardest, and
Damn right.
I got 100% attendance. I was there every day. I was cycling there to get there. And
Amazing. Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, cool. So I got into uni, and then I was 3 months in, and I thought it was going to be amazing. All these academics, I was going to learn all this amazing stuff. And I got in there, and I was just, it's flat. This is crap. This is this is rubbish.
Yeah,
and I was being taught. I did a business management and entrepreneurship degree. I was being taught and lectured by someone that had never left university. So they'd got a PhD in product design, never started a business, and now just went into academics and now teach. So I couldn't value a person's opinion as well.
Authority starts.
Well, it was not just authority, but there was no results. There's no you have to have the substance behind it. I'm not just going to, "You're a doctor, I'm going to listen to you." I don't have that. I've got, "Why should I?
Yeah.
What have you got? I don't want what you've got, so I'm not going to listen to you, because I wasn't going to end up in the same place." So I dropped out. But I don't like that term. I chose a different path.
Okay.
And I went double down on my business, and by the time they graduated on their degree, I was a millionaire. So I was all right, with that decision.
Yes.
But then as I started creating my own sort of education online and my own accreditations and things like that, I brought a whole different sort of flavour to learning, which is more authentic, more real, more relevant. And then there's a whole nother conversation we can have around the way that I would like to see education change. But to be honest, I could talk about it for hours, because it did fail people like me. Like it didn't support me when I was younger.
I get that.
And also it's just completely incomplete. It teaches you how to learn things. It doesn't teach you anything about yourself. Like if someone had just taught me about myself, then I would have been able to unlock everything after that easily.
I can see. I mean, even the way that you coach, you're quite sensitive to the other person's personality. The psychology of the person is very important to you.
Yeah, because everyone's different. Like you can't. The adage is you can't judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree.